Welcome to today's Tharstern Techchat. I'm joined here by my colleague Phil Dodge, one of our solution specialists. Hi, Phil.
Hi there, Ross.
Thanks for joining us today, Phil. So each week we try to answer a different question. And this week I've got a particular question for you that's probably going to be more of interest to accounts and finance sectors of the business. And also will probably be quite a lot of interest for our North American customers as well. So the question is, Phil, is how do we make sure that when we come to invoice a customer, that we charge them the right amount of tax, that we get that right at the invoice point? How do we manage that? So what have you got for us?
Well, if you happen to be in the United Kingdom, it's relatively straightforward because you have a VAT system based upon, generally speaking, the actual product types, and also there are exemptions with regard to customers. However, if you go to North America or other parts of the world, you can actually have both a VAT, a GST, goods and service tax, or a combination of both of those, making the entire process a little bit more tricky. And particularly within the North American environment, there, particularly in the United States as opposed to Canada, their taxation system has recently changed, making that process a whole lot more complex.
And I believe it's quite difficult. The complex there is actually trying to keep track of the changes as well, and knowing, depending where you ship to, what the right tax is going to be, and different tax breaks and for different types of products and things like that. Is that right?
Absolutely, and they refer to that particularly in the North American continent as the tax nexus, i.e. where you are and where you're shipping to. But the thing is that it can be a number of stages, in the fact that there might be a state tax, there might be a city tax, a local tax, and there may even be special taxes, and those can actually add up, and they can vary throughout North America, and we're talking here the United States, Canada, and other territories around the world.
So whilst we can set all these types of things up in Tharstern, the challenge is just keeping up to date with it as well. And so this is, I think, what you're going to show us today is like an integration to a Avalara AvaTax that helps the customer to manage that situation. Is that right?
Absolutely. And so the Avalara product has something called AvaTax, and the point is that is actually going to keep all of those, if you like, profiles up to date. And then all you really have to do is make sure that you're shipping to the correct address, and it will calculate that process.
So it simplifies it somewhat. Let's have a look then.
I will indeed, and I will just share my screen, and we can actually see that working. So I'm just going to utilize a small video for the process here. So we can see that we're actually in Tharstern, and I'm going straight into the options in Tharstern, and we can actually see that there is an Avalara section there where we can start to actually set default taxation codes based on the extensive list that's inside Avalara. And there's also abilities there to specify default shipping tax codes and other settings. But the first portion of this really relates to the individual customers, and more importantly, the shipping addresses. And you can see that I'm just filtering this list to look for Starbucks in this particular case. And when I open this record up, we can see that there's a multitude of shipping addresses, and I'm just going to open one of these up in Dallas in Texas. And you'll notice that I have a verification button. And what this does is that if you've got the actual shipping details inside Tharstern, it can verify against Avalara's database. If there is any variance, then basically utilizing the little arrow there, by selecting the appropriate piece of information within that little box there and hitting the arrow, you can then basically make sure the information is correct, because obviously that's very key to determining that the actual tax in terms of shipping. So that's the first portion of it. Okay, the second is obviously relating to the raising of your jobs and possibly sales orders, and more importantly, the actual shipping process. So in this case, I've actually created 4 separate sales orders, and the most important feature here is against each one of these, there are different shipping addresses based upon obviously those zip codes for obviously this particular customer, and you can see the values there that are actually identified. And I've actually shipped these, hence why they had that awaiting invoice status. Now you could have raised the invoice there, or as you can see here, I'm going into the shipping area because this is the likely area that you're going to do that process. And we can see all the pre-ships in red and the actual ships in black there. But the key thing is, well, how do I filter this list out to make meaningful sense of what I need to actually invoice today? So I've got a filter here, which is literally ship stuff today, ready to invoice. And I select that. And as you can see, it shows me all those details. And this is cool because then I can just basically see that it has been invoiced or it hasn't been invoiced in this case, select the whole value lot in this particular case for this customer, and I can raise a consolidated sales invoice for all of those shipments if I wish to in a single invoice. And then this actually details that information. You can see that we've got all the unit prices for the variety of SKU items in this case from the sales order processing, and we've got the total financial value at the moment not calculated with tax. Now what I can do is I can actually save this and it will basically save this particular sales invoice. But what I also have the ability to do, depending on the settings, is to actually initiate Avalara. On this particular case, because of the way we've got our settings set up, I'm basically going to go into now the sales invoice register, because it might be that there's an individual doing that process and it's the accountant that's going to actually process and post the final invoice. And you'll notice it's got an invoice, but the tax status is not sent. And it's in here that we can calculate tax and commit. And that basically uses the Avalara link in order to actually address that challenge. And you can see that has now been calculated. And you'll notice the tax breakdown button then gives us our microscopic breakdown of basically all the associated taxes, obviously for those shipments. But obviously, that's only one element of the process. The next is that we've got to presumably pay the revenue services for that. And this is where we're looking at in AvaTax, in Avalara itself. And what I'm doing is I'm just applying a little filter there where we can actually see that data. And you can see that the top line is literally that sales invoice I've submitted. You can't see the region because obviously in this particular case there are multiple line items, but you can see the amount and tax amount, and you can open that up, and therefore you can actually see the actual listing of those line items. And more importantly, when that goes further into the detail, you can also see the shipping detail. Now, Avalara also have options whereby while you've calculated your tax correctly and your sales invoice is correct, which is great, another one of their options is that you can submit this data to the appropriate revenue services, thus actually taking, you know, kind of a bit of pain for that particular process. But that is basically the integration to Avalara and with Tharstern, basically.
That's cool. So yeah, it really does simplify the process, doesn't it, and takes care of the management and calculation of the taxes, the different types of taxes, pretty much based on the shipping location and the type of product that it is, etc. It just does it all for you. That's really cool.
Absolutely.
Cool. Right, well, thank you very much for that, Phil. It's really, really great of you to share that with us and show us. If anyone's got any questions about that, then feel free to meet us in the comments and raise a question there, or you can direct message us. And if you have any other questions that you'd like us to cover on the Tharstern Techchat, then please do get in touch. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.